Hey, I'm Lyndsay from Lyndsay Makes, and today I'm doing a short tutorial video on how to create a beach bag out of a Santa sack. A couple of weeks ago I did a masterclass with only the sweet stuff, and in that masterclass I made a beach bag out of a Santa sack. It sounds random. The Santa sack was part of 3 products that I was given and challenged to make something creative out of. Since that masterclass occurred, a lot of people have been interested in how I did this. So I'm going to walk you through step by step how I created the bag. Thank you so much to Debbie for sending me an extra bag so that I can recreate the process for you. So the way that I worked out my proportions for my bag was kind of just a series of folds. I decided that I would like to have the coral panel at the top showing in my bag. It's got some loops at the side. These are very helpful features that you don't have to measure to get a symmetrical effect. I folded it down to the bottom of the loop, which hopefully you can see here. So you can see there's a loop just here. I'm going to use that as a guide for how far down I want to fold my top panel. I like to work with features like that just to make life a little bit easier. So I've already got a very neat fold here, which is great. If you would like to at this point, you can press it. Now I am literally pressing it today because I don't have my iron out, but I do have my Caesar craft heat press, which it works very well as an iron if you cannot be bothered getting your ironing board out. Okay, so from this step, we use the sewing machine. I'm going to bring the front section, so the shorter section here, up to the bottom of the coral fold over. You could also use hem tape or a heat and bond, but do whatever your comfort level is. Even if you blanket stitched across here, if you're someone that can blanket stitch, that would work just as well. And I'll show you why it doesn't necessarily matter in a moment. So we've got our item folded in half. I've got my sewing machine here. I'm going to take my phone over to here so you can see a close-up of what's going on. Again, it's literally going to be 3 rows of stitches, so don't be scared, it's going to be fine. Okay, so here is my beautiful Janome Memory Craft 8000. So I inherited this from my mum. I love this sewing machine, it's very easy to use. I've just laid some white thread up into the top and obviously also matching white in the bobbin as well. We're just going to feed this through, put the foot down, slow and steady, just always the way. I'm not doing it very smooth. If my mum's watching, I'm so sorry, Kaz. Please avert your eyes. Alright, and we have one side of the pocket sewn, and we're just going to do exactly the same thing on the other side, and just again 2 lines of stitching on either side of the bag. The first part of the sewing is done, and I will say this is not the neatest sewing. I think it's just because I'm trying to film it at the same time. There is now a stitch on this end and on this end, and it's keeping this pocket up. Now here's the cool bit. What I'm going to do is take this pocket and turn it inside out. Why, you may ask? Well, I will show you. So when we do this, our slightly shoddy sewing is suddenly hidden by the fact that it's got now just a beautiful fold. It's one of those cool things that I realized I could do as I was doing it, and I was like, oh, that makes life so much easier. And you can also just press your seams now just to make them look nice and neat. All right, so that is step 1 of creating your bag. This is sagging a little bit. This is where we have to get a little bit creative with our sewing. I guess this is probably the more complicated stitch of the 3 stitches. I'm going to fold the bag in half, like so. So basically I want to find the middle measurement of the bag, and I'm just going to press it. So what I'm going to do is stitch down here without stitching through to the back. So I'm going to go back to the sewing machine and I'll show you how I do that bit. This is why it's so good to have that ironed crease. I'm being very careful when I load this into the sewing machine that I'm not going to sew onto the back panel. The back at the moment is actually sort of under here. I am going to take this nice and slow and follow this line down. And at this point, I'm just going to stop for a second and just make sure that I know where the bottom of the bag is going to be. So it's going to be about here. So I know I don't have to stitch any further than that line. That's probably all that we need to do at this point. Now I'm going to carefully unload this because there are a few folds in the fabric, so we don't want to get them snagged on our foot. At this point, we can check to see whether our pocket has worked. So this is fresh out of the sewing machine. So you can see we've got the fold over up here, the coral section, we have got 2 pockets and they haven't gone through to the back. So you've still got that larger opening at the back for your bigger items. So at this point you can add the handles onto the bag. There are a few ways to do this. You can do it the way that I did it, which involves getting bag hardware. Look, I'm going to say it's not easy. I always need to watch a YouTube video to explain how the strap needs to go through the adjuster to make it adjust. I think for the purposes of making this bag and making it a really easy tutorial, I'm going to do exactly what Holly did, which is to add tote bag style handles to the bag. I am going to find a center point of the belt of the sack and I'm going to give it a quick snip, which gives me 2 handles. So you can do this a couple of ways. I think it depends on how you wear a bag, how you want the bag to be, like so. I would join them at the center point of each of the pockets. I would measure this measurement from the center to the edge and I'd divide that by 2, and if I went upwards that would be where I would sew one of my straps, and I do exactly the same thing on the other side as well. And if you wanted to get clever about it, I suppose, you could sew the straps to the bag underneath the fold over so you wouldn't see the stitch then. That would keep things nice and neat. Please don't beat yourself up if you decide to just like the easiest way possible, which is just to sew it onto the bag. And I have noticed on other bags that there is sort of like this nice stitch that people use, and I imagine it's to keep the strap secure onto the bag, which is to sew a square and then sew a cross through that square. Straps are a really personal preference. I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing it the way that I did it, only because it's very complicated. There are many tutorials available online about making adjustable straps for bags, and I would highly recommend you follow those because that's literally what I do when I'm doing it. So anyway, I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm going to show you how I will attach these straps. Okay, so we're back at the sewing machine again, and I have found that measurement, which is 1/4 of the way across the bag. I'm going to pin this here. I've got another pin, just going to pin this on here. So that will be the back strap, and then we're going to turn it over and we're going to do the front. And here's where you start to get a visual for what the bag's going to look like. I'm going to make sure that when I am stitching the handles on, that I'm going to do it under the flaps so they're hidden. Okay? But I do need to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to fold this inside out so I have access to this part here. I can see the bag folds over, so I know I won't stitch beyond that point. From here I'm going to try and do one of those square stitches just because I want this to be nice and secure. It's not something I've done a lot of, so I think it's going to be not as neat as, say, using an industrial sewing machine or whatnot. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed the bag through. I'm going to make sure that this part of the bag that folds over is definitely out of the way of the needle and the foot. Just doing a run of stitches here, and I'm stopping. The needle is going to stay down, but I can lift the foot and the needle will stay in the same place. And I'm just going to twist it around. I'm going to do another row of stitches here. Sewing another line. So again, going across, needle back down again, one more line of stitching. Now at this point we'll be in the top right hand corner. What we're going to do is do a diagonal stitch down to the bottom left hand corner. You should have, very untidily, is a square with a cross through it. Oh my goodness, that is very not neat, but that's okay because it's going to do its job. And then when we look at the front of the bag, it will be nice and neat and tidy. So it's actually the bag, the handle is stitched just there, but you can't see it because it's all under here. And I think that's kind of groovy, particularly when you're a messy sewer. So what I'm going to do is repeat that process for the remaining 3 straps and we should have a finished bag. And that is the finished bag. All done. 2 pockets at the front, handle and larger section at the back. So not even necessarily a beach bag, it could be a multi-purpose bag. Very easy sewing project, a cool way to repurpose something like a Santa sack You could probably even do something like this with a really cute patterned pillowcase or something like that as well. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, I'd really appreciate a like or to subscribe to my new YouTube channel. I'm going to be creating lots of content here from now on. If you do end up making something from this tutorial, I would love to see, so just let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me again, guys, and happy making! Great. Hang on, I'm not even sure if that's what it's called. Let's try that again.